Up until now, what you have been working with were flat washes. And in the process of doing a flat wash, you were required to have your paper at an angle and also to use a puddle and draw that puddle down so that you got an even application of color. The important thing is that in the process of maintaining this puddle, you had to go back to your reservoir of color and replenish. You had to not clean your brush during the entire process. You were just going from reservoir of color or pigment to your flat wash. So this is going to be a little different now, because now you're going to have to learn how to do a graded wash. And the difference between the graded wash and the flat wash is that now the brush gets cleaned as you progress from a darker to a lighter shade of color. So what I've done, or what I would like you to do, is to use these exercises that you used for your flat washes and try to do them with graded washes. And the way that you do this is you mix up your concentration color to the intensity or to the tint value that you want it to be. It can be fully saturated, or it can even be a very light tint that gradates to a clear background. It all depends on the subject matter that you are working with. You know, sometimes petals go from a very pale pink to a white. Sometimes they go from a pink to a yellow. These are all things that you can do with a graded wash. I have drawn, although you probably can't see it here because I've drawn the outlines very light, but you'll see them as I fill them in. So what you want to do is load your brush so that you have pigment through the entire belly, and make sure that you have a fairly extreme angle on your color block. You want to load your brush, and there are two ways actually to work. You can either work on dry paper, which for these real small subjects you don't really need to dampen the paper first, but I'll show you how to do it both ways. So you load your brush with a color, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I was doing the flat wash. I'm going to start by filling an area of color and maintaining a puddle at the bottom edge. Now, it doesn't have to be a big puddle. The next thing you want to do is you want to clean your brush. What I normally do is take most of the moisture out of the brush before I put it in the water, because this way my cleaning water stays cleaner than it might normally. I then go into my regular water, I take some of the moisture out of the brush, and then in the puddle, I start to grade this wash and bring it down just a little bit. I then clean the brush again, go back into clean water, take some of the moisture out of the brush, picking up from where the puddle left off, and grade some more. Clean the brush of pigment, dip it in clean water, some of the moisture out of the brush, and then continue with my gradation until I have finished the shape. And there's your graded wash. Now we can do this by dampening the paper first. So you want to take and put water in your brush, and you want to dampen the paper in the area that you want to paint. Now this damp area cannot be shiny. It has to be matte finish in order for the paint not to spread too much. So once you have this sitting here and you filled in the entire shape with water, I'm going to take another color here. I think with the ultramarine blue, probably dampening the page is a better way of approaching this, because it allows it to sit a little longer before it starts to dry on you. But you can see, as long as I have that puddle, I'm going to be okay. All right, I'm going to clean the brush, have just a little bit of moisture in the brush. Go into the puddle area, don't go all the way up into this shape, and kind of pull across until it gets to the gradation where you want it to start to get lighter again. All right, this time I'm going to leave a little more water in the brush. And now I'm going to pull it all the way down. I'm going to clean the brush again just to finish it off. Pick up any extra moisture I see on the page. Cleaning my brush every time I leave the shape so that we get a transition in the process of painting. Now this one is fairly extreme. We could have started a little higher up. The other thing that you can do is let this dry and then put another gradation on that if you want this to transition a little bit more. Now gradations are not only good for when you have to create highlights on leaves or changes of color in petals. You also will need it when you are doing a narrow shape like a branch or a stem to a flower, something that's tall and narrow. I have another one here that I'll show you that is a kind of a narrow shape. In this case, I also am going to just slightly dampen the page. You're going to find that, especially in the winter time when the heat is on, you almost invariably have to dampen a little bit because the paper just dries out so fast. But the whole idea is just to put a little moisture into the fiber of the paper so that you don't get a hard edge. All right. So I'll give that a second, and I think I'll just do a green stem here. And I'm going to fill my brush, but make sure I have a point. You don't want too much moisture in the belly with something this narrow. And run down the whole edge of that shape. This is going to work a little bit differently from the puddle technique. Now you have to clean the brush, and you just want to barely touch that edge to soften it. Just barely touch the color edge. Don't go into it too far because then you'll pull away all your color. All right, so we're going to turn this around now, and we'll work the other side. Since I want a little bit more color in this, I'm going to add a little blue because there's always a shadow on a subject. And I am going to put a little darker green on this side. And you will have to work a little quickly for this because that top edge will dry out very fast. Clean the brush and just barely touch it. You just want to barely catch that color edge just to soften it. That's all that you really need to do. And it will take care of itself. So there you have a gradation. And you can always go back again and you can put more color in and do the whole process again where you're just touching the edge of that color band in order to get the gradation. So that's basically it.